What is up, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Trainer Scoop, a podcast dedicated to those passionate about fitness to help you improve in life and lifting. I gotta say, today is going to be an episode of firsts. The first thing that comes to my mind why this is an episode of firsts is because I have a world record holder with me today. And that is the world record RDL holder, Bryce.
Dude, okay, I was wondering where this is going. That actually might be true, though. That actually might be true.
Yeah, like definitely, I would put you up there.
Dude, I don't know. I'm just really good at RDLs, apparently. Who fucking knows? I don't know where that came from.
I was thinking last night how I'm gonna make this like a funny intro, and that definitely popped up.
Dude, yeah, for me, it's like all hip hinges. I think I'm just like really good. I'm good at good mornings. Good at stiff leg deadlifts, RDLs, like any kind of deadlift variation I'm good at. I don't know why. It's just random. It's super random.
Right. A little backstory. When I first met Bryce, well, I guess I'll start a little bit further back than that even. My senior year at Ohio State, kind of got sick of the campus gyms just because I felt like there wasn't a lot of room for me to grow there. So I ended up joining a different gym in Hilliard, Ohio called 614 Barbell. And like my first memory of that gym is I walk in and off to the right, you have the squat racks. And I just see this dude split stance RDLing like 500 pounds. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm in the right spot.
No, I actually didn't know where you're going to go with that. But I honestly was I was looking at something the other day and in that video popped up whenever I did that. It was like a split stance RDL. It was like 500 for 8 or something like that on each side. But I was watching that shit and I was like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck was I thinking whenever I was doing that? In retrospect, I was like, damn, that was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. But I don't know how I didn't get hurt. I didn't get hurt, but that was pretty dumb.
Yeah, man. And like we said, he might be the unofficial. But I think I was stalking your Instagram just to think of some talking points as well. And I saw a video. It was like 705 by 3 or something in that ballpark. So definitely, like you said.
Oh, for RDLs?
For the regular RDL. Definitely.
Oh, no, that was actually snatch grip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a snatch grip RDL. Yeah, it was 700 for 3. And then I'm trying to think what else is pretty decently impressive. I mean, I've done like 4 by 8 with 585 before. I've done 600 for 3 good mornings, a cambered bar, just stupid shit like that. I don't know. I can't squat or do anything impressive there, but I'm just a good hip hinger.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, on a real note, Bryce is someone I've looked up to, and it's sort of been like a mentor figure to me. Like I was saying, went to that gym to learn more, and he was always willing to offer advice or just explain things to me to that next level. So I'm really looking forward to what Bryce will be able to bring to the table for this conversation for all my audience out there. And another unofficial title might be the face of the Columbus fitness scene, Bryce. I don't know if you've ever heard that one before, but I feel like you're all over, man, and it's a good thing.
I think that might be a little over exaggerating, but but no, I'm getting to a point definitely where I'll go to a random gym and people know who I am, which is really weird still, but yeah, someone will come up to me oh dude, I follow you on Instagram, and cool. Hey. I don't know, I don't know how to respond to that. Cool. But no, I guess it is a good thing though. My business is growing and I'm getting a little bit more notoriety, and which is it's definitely a good thing. You know what I mean? It's good for business, and I've been doing my best, put out educational content and stuff like that. Be consistent with that. I've done it intermittently in the past. But I've been much more consistent with it recently and trying to expand my business and grow and stuff like that. So yeah, I think, I don't know about the face of the Columbus fitness scene, but definitely get to a point where I have at least a name, I'm right there.
Yeah. And that's been awesome to see. I'm really happy for you on that part as well. Before we get into all that good stuff, because I definitely have seen that jump in, informative content and, almost like the aesthetic of your Instagram as well. I want to put you on the hot seat real quick, Bryce.
Yeah.
So if you were to pick one, what's your favorite gym in Columbus, or do you even have one?
Oh, it's 614.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, no shade against any other gyms that I go to or anything like that. But 614 always felt the most like a home to me. Like
Mhm.
it's always been the best environment. Always just people bullshitting with you. Like if I'm going to go to a gym and like try and PR, it's going to be 614
Definitely.
always. So yes, that's definitely my favorite gym. But again, like I've been around those people for years now, so I
Mhm.
know them. We're all good friends, and
Right.
it doesn't have the like the equipment variety that some other gyms have. You know, that's why I have multiple memberships. It's just like if I want to go do like a quick back workout, just where I don't have to load mountains of plates and dumbbells on top of each other. I just want to use some machines. Then I can go do a quick machine-based back workout somewhere and not have to worry about all that. But no, as far as like just purely like what gym I enjoy being at the most, definitely 614.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to echo that, I think the things that I enjoyed most about 614 is, like you said, like the environment and community of people.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the best I'd ever been in, because I think I even wrote a blog about this actually. It had some of the best trainers there that I've ever encountered. Maybe, not like saying any shade on anybody else, of course, like Bryce was saying, but like
No, I
Zach
can
Wallman, who
completely
I worked
understand.
with, Tyson, who was always giving me shit, pushing me to the next level.
Tyson.
Yeah, Kelsey, a good group there,
Yeah,
and a solid amount of equipment too. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
for sure.
And then one thing I always try, even though I forget, to ask people that I'm interviewing, what's the go-to gym song been lately?
Oh shit. Um, oh man. Lately, so I listen to a lot of mixes. So like
Mhm.
I'm like real on like EDM, so I usually put on like a mix or something like that.
Okay, I got you.
But trying to think if there's like one song that I'm just like,
Dude, for real, sometimes I'll just check out those SoundClouds and it'll just melt your face off. And
yeah,
I'm
no,
like,
that's exactly what I always go to, man. Like I always
yeah.
so there's actually like one song that like I was like just fucking blasting nonstop for like 2 or 3 days recently. But you probably have no idea who this is or what the song is. But like the artist name is Calcium, and the song is FWYS. It's like I think it's like fuck what you say or something like that.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just like it melts your face, complete face melter. Yeah,
Well, we will all check that out. And
yeah,
just a liability warning, be prepared for your face to be melted.
for sure, man. That's a PR song. No, like I have PR songs for sure, and that's definitely one. Where
Yeah.
if I'm like trying to do something real heavy and like need to focus, I'm like I'm gonna just blare this shit.
Definitely. So, Bryce, do you want to talk about a little bit of your background, how you got into lifting, where you're at now, maybe some of the journey along the way as well?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like I played sports like all throughout my life. And then whenever I was in high school, I got a little bit more interested in like working out, like resistance training. Like even whenever I was younger, I always was like very interested in exercise. So I would do like push-ups and sit-ups and all kinds of stuff like that before I go to bed every night. Like even whenever I was like in elementary school, it was really weird actually. Now that I'm looking back on it, it's like super strange. Like I think years before I ever had access to any kind of weight sets or a gym, I would literally just like do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups in my bedroom before I'd go to bed. And like I do vividly remember like I would try and do the 100 in like the least amount of time and least amount of sets every night. I would try and do it in like less. So like I had no
Talk
idea
about
what like
progressive
progressive overload was.
overload.
I had no idea what progressive overload was, but I just knew like I should probably be trying to do something. So I remember doing that for a long time. And then whenever I was in high school, probably around like 15 or 16, I started I think I got like a gym membership, like the YMCA or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I started training more seriously and I just fell in love with it. And then I gravitated more towards that versus like team sports. And I started dedicating a lot more time to like actually lifting. And, um, and then whenever I got to college, I realized like, okay, like this is definitely a passion of mine. I definitely want to do something as far as like exercise science or physiology or nutrition or something like that. So I kind of landed on exercise science. And I ended up getting my bachelor's in exercise science. And funny story, I was actually supposed to have a nutrition minor, but one of the classes that I took, and it is being used, or was used as a major class for my exercise science degree, was also a mandatory minor class for nutrition, but it could only be used for one. Ohio State was weird as hell, man. I had no clue. It's like I didn't even know that until my senior year. Like, I was about to graduate, I fully thought I had a nutrition minor, and they're like, actually, no. So yeah, interesting. But I should have a nutrition minor. So I have exercise science major. Whenever I was 19, so like my sophomore year of college, I started interning at a private gym, and it was called Spot Athletics, and it's in Columbus, Ohio. It's how I met Zach, and I interned there for about a year. I want to say, like, unpaid internship for about a year. And then after that, they hired me on. I worked there for another 4 years or 5 years, 4 years, I think. I don't know. As like an actual trainer and coach. So this gym is like a strength and conditioning gym. Lots of athletes, youth athletes, like high school athletes, professional athletes, also personal training and group classes. Basically, like full spectrum. I worked there for a long time. Got a lot of in-person experience, which I think every coach should have. It's a different dynamic whenever you just try and start in the online space. You lose a lot. You lose a lot of what you would actually learn as far as like real life and real world, like technicalities,
Mm-hmm.
just logistical things that you pick up on training people in person that you wouldn't necessarily understand if you only did online. So I always recommend people spend at least a year or two doing in-person training, even though it's not as lucrative typically. You know, you're not going to make as much money long term, but it is beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed there for a while, ended up leaving, and then I started my own personal training business in person. So I did that for about, I want to say about a year. And then in that time, I started branching out into online and doing some stuff like that. I would like train people for free, write their programming for free, and just kind of figure out what I was doing. And then at a certain point, I realized that I was making more money doing online training than I was in-person training. And then I realized that my in-person training was actually taking away from what I was capable of doing online and capable of handling. And, I ended up having like a good group of like friends who kind of would promote me and like refer me out to other people for online training. And I actually ended up starting to work with a lot of competitors, and specifically like female competitors. And that kind of just took off sometime around last year. I want to say like summer of 2019 is whenever things just started popping off for me. And then got to the point where I stopped training in person completely. I transitioned everything online. And now I'm to the point where, I'm hiring people around me. I'm going to be needing multiple assistant coaches here relatively soon. Yeah, it's a great thing. So like, basically my background is all of that. And then also I've competed in bodybuilding, and I stopped because I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't really necessarily a passion of mine. I like lifting. I like having like the goals. I just did not like actually stepping on stage. That was not for me.
Right.
Like it just does not fit my personality. My personality is definitely more in line with powerlifting. And I actually was planning to do a meet last year, but then I got so busy with work that work kind of consumed me, and I just didn't really have the motivation or time anymore to focus on personal goals anymore. At that point, it was more focused on my clients. So, which I'm still at that point.
Yeah. I'll be looking forward to the point where, you can pick up some coaches and then hopefully get back to that competitive side, because that would be cool to see you put together a total, man.
Dude, like I was actually having this conversation yesterday with someone, and because I tore my adductor in May, and so I've still been like slowly getting back from that. Like, I think I just got back to the point where like I'm deadlifting over 500 again, and but my life goal is still I want to deadlift 800. Like I've deadlifted 765 for a single. I deadlifted 700 for 5.
Nice.
Yeah, I wanna pull 8, and I thought that I might be able to do it this year, but obviously COVID hit, and then my adductor being an issue, like I can't really um, I can't really do much deadlifting right now or high volume. I'm still recovering from that because I did that only probably like 8-10 weeks ago. But yeah, so that's I would love to deadlift 8. I would love to squat like 7, and I've benched 500 before, but uh, if I could pull off a 2K total at some point in my life, I'd be hyped.
Oh yeah, man. I honestly think if one day came together, I think it's possible. Just from seeing your videos and being around you in the gym, like that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, I would just have to stay healthy. That's my thing. Like
Yeah,
like historically, I haven't been able to stay healthy. So if I could do that, then I probably would be able to put up some respectable numbers.
yeah, man. One thing that I picked up on as you were kind of going through your progression is it really doesn't happen overnight, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people can misconstrue when they see these huge fitness personalities. Not saying you're a fitness personality, maybe soon, but like people that come to mind like Jeff Nippard, other
Yeah.
people on YouTube, Instagram. Um, you kind of think like, oh, it can happen like quickly, but you have to put in that time to work for free, slowly build your business up, whether that's definitely in person so you can get that experience, doing things for free. And it's a gradual process, but all things worthwhile take time. So it's cool to hear that it's paying off and everything's coming to fruition.
Yeah, just on that note though, like one thing I highly recommend against now is doing anything for free.
Okay.
Highly recommend I highly recommend against doing that because people don't value free.
Right.
So as soon as you can kind of convince, even if it's $100, whatever it might be, like as soon as people have a value on what you're offering them and the service that you're providing them,
Mm-hmm.
then it means something. But if you
Yeah.
value yourself at 0, then they're not going to value you either.
Right.
So that's one thing that I learned. I had a few clients who I would train for free or, very, very, very discounted prices whenever I would start. And I had some of them who were actually good clients. Majority of them just didn't give a fuck.
Right.
So that's where I'm at now. Like once you get to the point where I am now, like where I charge a lot of money for what I do, I only get people who are serious. No one like wastes my time now, which
Mhm.
is a good thing. Not everyone can afford me, but at the same time, no one's gonna be wasting my time either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's great advice, especially for kind of the spot that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be one of those episodes that's got a lot of great knowledge for, I feel like, obviously people that are trying to be fitness professionals, but other people kind of looking at it from an outside lens as well, to like, maybe who you could work with or what you should look for in qualities for people that are, achieving in their professional career. It doesn't even have to be fitness, but that's
Yeah.
just a good piece of advice.
And like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. Dude, I struggled. I was out of work for almost a year, like just not working at all. I've I've been to the point where I made like $10,000 in a year. Like it just like it's been struggles, man. Like it wasn't always easy. There were lots of times where you wake up at 3:30 a.m. because you have a 5 a.m. client, because I train people in person, and I did that for years. So like you said, the big thing is that people can see like where I am or where other coaches are, and it's very easy to like romanticize that place, but you don't see everything that went into it before that. It's like seeing someone with a great physique. Like, oh man, I'd love to look like that. Yeah, but you also don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. and go do 60 minutes of cardio. You don't want to track every macro that you eat. You don't want to go to the gym 6 days a week. You don't want to get 8 hours of sleep. You don't want to say no to like all the social situations and gatherings that you might have to look like that. It's like, of course, it seems amazing to like be in a position I'm at, or a position where you're able to support yourself working online or doing something like that. But man, it takes a lot of shit to get to this point too, man. Like I've put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of sleepless nights, dude. It's a lot of stress. Yeah, but I wouldn't trade it. I'm glad I did all that. I'm glad I did it. It made me a better person. It's taught me a lot of lessons. it's good. It'll benefit me more than it harmed me. So
Right. Yeah, man, I feel like that is definitely like a synonymous response that people who have made their own business and come a long way will commonly say. So it's cool to hear, like, once again, just to see everything has come to the point that it's at.
yeah, it takes a lot of work,
Yeah. Another hot seat question I have for you, Bryce, and you don't even have to go super in depth with it, but you're obviously a high level coach. What is one of your go-to methods for progression? Like, do you work RIR, RPE? What's your stance on that?
So I typically like to employ some type of proximity to failure mark, especially whenever you're working online and you're not watching your clients in person. Like if you were to be, working with a client one-on-one, you could watch them and see about where their effort level is, where their proximity to failure is, where their technique is breaking down on an exercise. In the online space, you're not getting every video sent to you in real time to tell them what to do. You're not being able to cue them in real time. You're not being able to watch their set as it's happening and say, hey, all right, cut the set there. We're good. You can't do that. So basically you have to trust that your clients are proficient and they're technically sound and they're skilled enough to be able to make those judgment calls themselves and not hurt themselves, not push themselves too hard, not push themselves too easy. They have to understand what they're doing, which is a side topic. I don't recommend anybody that is a beginner to work with an online coach for training, at least. I recommend that you work with an in-person trainer, learn how to lift, learn how to be technically proficient on all exercises, learn how to strain under load. Like there's a lot of things that you can learn from working with a person or a trainer in person before you graduate to being able to work online. Online is a privilege. It's a privilege to pay less money to work with a coach online than it is to pay $1,000 a month to work with a personal trainer in person. So having said that, I think that for me, what's been the most beneficial has been definitely a blend of RIR and RPE. Granted, not everyone gets that privilege. If that becomes too confusing of a method for some people, which it can be, then sometimes I'm just like, I just take it out. But for the most part, I think that the best progression models that I've found have been some kind of blend between scaling volume and scaling intensity. And granted, if you're going to scale intensity, that's just going to be like a basic progressive overload model. And which I think everybody kind of understands that that's probably the best way to go about building muscle over long periods of time, is just getting strong on a variety of movements with the same technique, the same neural connections, all of that stuff being equal. But for myself, I think that there is definitely an aspect of you have to understand the client that you're working with, understand the individuality of them. So if you have a client who just is incapable of technically pushing close to failure, like it's not going to happen. They either don't have like that willpower, or they always are going to have technical breakdowns. Just it's not going to be safe for them to do that, whatever. You might understand that, okay, to progress, they might need a little bit more volume versus just scaling the intensity consistently.
Yeah.
Or this person might just need a bit more variation than this person. Like for me, I can do a lower body training session that is lying leg curls, leg press, and deficit deadlifts. And that's all I need. Like that is a very, very hard lower body workout for me. For a 120-pound female, that's just never going to be enough. Almost in every circumstance, they're going to need more than that. And they can handle more than that. So whenever we're talking about just like progression models in general, I think the biggest one, or the biggest factor is just knowing who your client is and knowing their tendencies, what they're able to do, and then also like what they respond well to, because not everybody responds well to just pushing progressive overload all the time.
Right.
And I think if you can find at least specific movements where you can implement that, it's probably a good thing, right? So like if you have a client who they can and they're able to squat proficiently, but like it's just a movement that they're scared to push very hard, that might not be the best model to use or the best exercise to use to just progressively overload the shit out of them. they
Right.
might be better served to progressively overload a leg press.
Yeah.
They might just feel a little bit more comfortable pushing close to failure. It might be something that they can more easily micro load that over time. And then after a certain point, they're, instead of doing 200 pounds for 10, they're doing 300 pounds for 10 versus on squats. Like they just weren't ever going to be able or capable of pushing themselves that hard. So I think the big part of progression is individuality.
Yeah.
Because everyone is going to be different. For myself, I know that the way I progress and the way that I can progress myself in the gym is going to be very different than the way that I progress a lot of my clients. That's just because I know how I am. And I know that, I'm able to recover from certain things. And I'm definitely not able to recover from certain things, whether it's exercise selection or it's variation within a session or it's load or it's proximity to failure. Like I know that for myself, if I take a set of leg press to one RIR, I'm gonna be fucked up, man. Like, cause I know what one RIR truly feels like on a leg press. And that's not fun, not fun. But if I were to start working with someone, I'm like, hey, leg press, one RIR, granted, like the chances that they actually can push that set as hard as I can, very, very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
Like most people just aren't capable of doing that. So understanding again, like who your clients are and understanding that whenever you say, 3 reps in reserve, typically that's going to look more like 10 reps in reserve,
Yeah.
especially on lower body movements.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you say 3 reps in reserve on bench press, it's going to look more like 1 rep in reserve because people just feel more comfortable pushing
Right.
upper body movements.
Right.
Like if you tell someone to stop 3 reps short of failure on pull-ups, never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Never going to happen. You tell someone to stop 3 reps short of failure on squats, it's going to be more like 8 to 10 reps short of failure. So you just have to understand the tendencies of people.
Yeah. That's such a good point. Couple things to unpack there, man. First of all, I'd just like to say, um, I think it's a sign of a really good coach where you can put aside your biases and say like, hey, maybe that the squat isn't the best thing for you, or I guess maybe progressing the squat isn't the best thing for you, and we can shift toward the leg press. Because personally for me, I like the squat and the idea of that and how it fits into powerlifting better. But you
For
have to
sure.
be able to separate your own preferences to what's best for your client. That's the key to a great coach. And then also just being able to work with, the high level type of clients that you do and give those sort of indicators as well as possible. I think it definitely takes some trial and error. And it's cool that you say that too. It reminds me of one instance where I was down at one of the gyms near Philly and there was a guy, his name's Danny. Shout out to Danny. Kind of reminds me of you, Bryce, honestly.
It's not Masinchik, is it?
No, I know
Okay.
who that is, but this guy, he's like a grad school, or no, he graduated. He's a teacher at Temple, and he worked with RP. And he was like, "What's your?"
Okay.
And I was like, "I'm doing 4 sets of 10 on the Cybex leg press at 2 RIR." He's like, looked at me. He's like, "I don't think that was 2 RIR." I was like, "Oh," and he was like, "Just try something for me." He made me go to concentric failure on the leg press. And I really was able to push much harder, but just that feeling of the sled coming back down on me, I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so this is the appropriate load for me to use. And it's not always easy as an online professional to do that, but it sounds like you have a great system in place. And it's cool to see that and hear your explanation. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, biggest things there, and I think that you brought up a good point where like you can't be married to your biases. So for me, like even in my own training, I very rarely will miss a rep, very rarely. So like whenever I say miss a rep, very rarely will I ever go past that concentric failure point. And for me, I generally label it as technical failure. So like whenever technique breaks down, that is the failure point of your set.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will never go past technical failure ever because
Right.
for me the risk of injury is just not worth it. With especially the loads that I'm using and the loads that I'm capable of pushing.
Yeah.
If I go past technical failure on an RDL, that's just a catastrophe waiting to happen. So I will never push past that for myself personally. But like you said, there is a benefit sometimes of just knowing what that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody actually knows what concentric failure on the leg press feels like because it feels like you're dying.
Yeah.
So whenever people say that they train to failure, I'm like, no, the fuck you don't, dude. Like, I've seen you train. You don't train to failure. You train tricep pushdowns to failure. Cool. Like that. Like I'm
There's
like
no
that.
risk.
I'm like,
Not
yeah, that
really.
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't really take like that much balls to do like machine lateral raises to failure. Sorry, like if you want to really like impress me, do like a set of hack squats to failure. Like that's fucking scary, man. Like that takes a lot to do. Or leg presses to failure. Like those types of like just heavy compound movements where you can almost always just squeeze another rep out, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like that's the type of shit. Or any kind of like unilateral leg movement. Like like if you take like a Smith machine split squat to like actual failure, like what, like that's just misery, complete misery.
Yeah.
So that's like my thing where I think, again, I'm firmly against like recklessly abandon or recklessly abandon. I
There
don't know
you
how to say that. I don't know how to say that as like what is that, like a verb? But anyway,
go.
like just throwing caution to the wind and training to failure all the time. I'm firmly against that. At like the absolute highest, most advanced level, you can probably do that because the volumes are gonna have to be so low anyways. It's gonna counteract itself. But whenever we're talking about like intermediates, beginners, like, dude, they don't fucking need to train to failure and pass. Like, they don't need that shit, you know?
Mhm.
Like, if we're talking about, okay, we're gonna do like a seated leg curl and you're gonna do a drop set after, that's fine. But like they don't need to squat to failure. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no one needs to squat to failure. Ray Williams doesn't squat to failure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the best squatter of all time. He doesn't squat to failure. Like, when's
Right.
the last, like, powerlifters never train to failure on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, you know? So that's my thing. I think that like at the absolute advanced levels, you can probably train to failure and pass and be very beneficial. And, you know, obviously whenever PEDs are involved, that makes another big difference as well. But, you know, my biases definitely lie more along the lines of just training intelligently.
Yeah.
So for me, intelligent training does not always include training to failure.
Oh
I
yeah.
think there's a time and a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of goes back to like my bias lands more along like the RIR RPE because I think that that's more intelligent long-term planning. But I also do think there is time and place to go towards or to failure, potentially even past. And but I don't think that that's somewhere you should hang out all the time, especially as an intermediate. Definitely not as a beginner.
Definitely. Learning from Zach Gallman, when he would program for me, I was like, man, he's just weights just feel so light. And it ended up, progressing toward where I had like a couple of big PRs at the meet I competed at last winter. And, especially the peaking, I felt like that was
Yep.
so tedious. Just type of my personality. But yeah, there's definitely something to be said for having that guidance and for all the work on your part, and people that are putting out good information, all the work that it takes to learn that, put it into practice, understand it. So it's definitely valuable. And I think, like, as we were talking about RP, Renaissance periodization earlier, he shouted you out a while back, right? Mike
Oh
Israetel.
yeah, Mike did.
That was pretty.
Yeah, dude. So Mike Israel's been like a huge like I don't want to say mentor, but like I've followed him for a long time, and like I've kind of absorbed all the content that he's put out for a really long time,
Mm-hmm.
and I've met him once or twice. Really nice dude. Follow each other on Instagram, have back and forth every once in a while. But yeah, I posted like literally it was exactly on this topic. It was about like biases in your own like coaching styles and stuff like that. But I post like a little mini rant on my story or something like that, and then he reposted on his actual page. I was like, holy shit! I got like 400 followers in like an hour, and I was like, that's cool. Like
Thank
cool,
you.
man. But yeah. He's a good dude. He's like the most intelligent person I've ever encountered whenever it comes to any kind of training, programming, or theory or anything associated with that. Like the dude just thinks like a machine. So
Oh yeah. Oh, real quick. When I worked a booth at the Rogue Invitational CrossFit event, and then
yeah,
Renaissance Periodization was there. And
yeah.
I didn't even know who he was. I had heard of Renaissance Periodization in their app, but I didn't know who he was. And I went over and talked to him and asked him. So like one thing I learned in college was, of course, how to set macros and understanding, different activity levels and different goals and accounting for accounting for energy expenditure.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, how do you then progress that and change macros over time? And he went into like the deep stuff. I was like, okay. I just walked away.
And
I
you had no
wasn't
idea who he was?
I didn't know who he was. I was not ready for that.
That's
But
funny. That's funny. Yeah, because you said Temple, and he used to be a professor at Temple, right?
I think that's how Danny had that connection.
Okay, yeah, I think he used to be a professor there, and I think he stopped, and now he just does like RP stuff full
Right.
time.
Balling, man. Good for
But
them.
yeah, man, no shit.
So one thing, kind of on this same topic, and as we mentioned before, I've seen Bryce's long form content, overall, aesthetics and the graphics of your Instagram content. It seems like it's just like next level now. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? How it's progressed for you, some of the
Yeah,
things that went into it.
yeah. So like a big part of like my branding, my business was just kind of getting more towards that space of like putting out content, putting out like good educational stuff, and then within that, like you just kind of have to post things that like catch people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
So it just has,
Yeah.
like you said, it has to have more of an aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I hired and started working with like a graphic designer guy and like a media guy, and so his name Nick, shout out Nick. But yeah, so like we just basically came up with like a plan and how to do it, how to implement it, and it keeps me accountable because I honestly don't like posting on Instagram. It's just another thing that like I don't like thinking about. Like I have so much other shit that's going on in my day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's one thing that I generally, if I don't have to do it, I'm not going to do it. But it's crucial to my business. So that was kind of the turning point where I was like, all right, I need to do this. So um, reached out, got help from someone who was actually a professional in that space and with design and with like media, and from there it's mostly just been sticking to a plan and sticking to the schedule and posting content regularly. And right now I'm just kind of like going through like a full series and stuff like that, and that
Yeah.
is fully built out like over the next couple months, which is nice, so I don't have to think about it. After
I've
that, I'm
really
sure
enjoyed
that
it.
what
It's been good stuff. I've really enjoyed it. As far as the in-depth posts you do and then how you accompany that with like a specific workout that targets whatever muscle group you're talking
yeah.
about. I've learned a lot from that. So thank you for putting
Yeah,
time
yeah.
into it.
Like, no, that stuff's been actually good because that stuff's more fun for me. And it's nice to have at least like an idea of what I need to do that day versus like just sporadic posting. Um, but yeah, like for me, like I said, I'm not like super IG or social media savvy,
Yeah.
but I understand how crucial it is to my business and like getting me like clients and inquiries and stuff like that. So I basically just like I need to do this. I need to like bite the bullet and just get it done. So that's what I did. And and now like gonna start progressing into like I just am gonna start launching like a actual business Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's gonna be start to be funneled there away from my personal page, which will be a good thing for me because it'll take a little bit of pressure off of me and like my personal page.
Right.
But yeah, like that's just kind of where this is going now. And I think for people that are interested in online training or they're interested in getting into this space or getting a larger following or anything like that, just understand that Instagram and social media are like, it's an endless wealth of potential clients. It really is. And
Mm-hmm.
for everybody that like thinks that just because I have X amount of clients, that means that they're not going to be able to get clients. That's not how it is at all. I promise you, there are enough clients for everyone to go around and everyone to be successful and for everyone to make a living. You just have to be on top of it and figure your own shit out on how to get the clients. And a lot of times it is about consistently posting, consistently putting out good information. A lot of people that are influencers, they just regurgitate the same shit that everybody else does. And I don't want to be that. I want to be able to put out original content that like people can come to my page and like, oh, I'm not seeing that anywhere else. So if I wanted to post fucking swipe workouts, I could do that all day, but that's not necessarily my brand. Yeah, that's not my brand. So, if I were actually posting what I was doing that day, it would be the same thing every fucking week because
Yeah.
that's what I do in training. I train and stick to the same block of training for X amount of time. And then whenever I need a deload, I deload. And then I either do the same block of training a little bit modified, or I just do something a little bit different. So
Mhm.
yeah, my training is actually boring. Most people's training should be boring. So like that's the difference between like just going and exercising versus actually trying to progress. So for me, my audience and the people that I want to work with are more along the lines of people that actually have goals and want to progress. They don't just want to go to the gym to have fun.
Yeah.
So
Get a
if
sweat
you,
in.
yeah, and like I think that if you understand who your demographic is and who you're marketing towards, it becomes much easier to actually get those clients. Because if you're marketing just towards, you know, the people that want to go in the gym and look on Instagram and be like, oh, I want to try this workout today. Great, post swipe workouts. But for me, I would much rather have my clients and potential clients understand I know what I'm talking about as far as program building and design for long-term progress and long-term, like, you know, gaining muscle and hypertrophy and strength and all those things. Because that's what's actually going to get me those clients versus me posting swipe workouts, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Great point there with I feel like a lot of the best coaches and people, it transitions over to their own training as well. They kind of, it's not exciting day in and day out. Like, of
No.
course, you still enjoy going to the gym, but it's not like this novel thing where you're getting, you know, oh, I'm going to try this new exercise today and we're going to get a crazy, crazy pump today, like off of this new exercise. Yeah, it's just some things have long-term return and it's not always what is appealing on Instagram. But like you said, I feel like with Instagram and other social media, you almost have to walk before you run.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, and I feel like we're kind of on the same page, is you have to put time into making it look nice or whatever. So then people become attracted to it. And then once you can get them in, you can provide that valuable information. One example that comes to my mind, I think the best piece of content I've ever put out was a 6-minute YouTube video where I was just talking in front of my iPhone front facing camera about nutrient timing and powerlifting meet day. I did like reviews of meta-analysis, went crazy in depth, applied it to like what I learned from my failures with my first meet. And I got 6 views on that motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I
So,
mean, that's another thing, like, and honestly, you kind of understand this just by looking at the amount of people that have large followings on social media or Instagram, things like that. It's not like some of the best content that you see comes from people that have less than 10,000 followers.
right.
And then you see like these women or random dudes that have millions of followers that are just, again, regurgitating the same shit. They're just posting the same dumb stuff every single day. And it's like, yeah, well, whenever you post a video of you doing RDLs and it's like your butthole angle, no shit. You know what I mean? Like no shit, you're gonna have like 1 million followers after a certain point, and they're
Mhm.
not here for your workouts, you know?
Yeah.
But again, they understand what their target demographic of audience is, and they market to that. Like for me, I understand that the majority of my audience appreciates me being a sarcastic asshole 90% of the time. And then 10% of the time putting out like relatively educational content that's, you know, it's not like regurgitated, like I said, it's pretty new. So I think that just that's a funny point that you made. Like sometimes like the most thought provoking or like the best insights that you have or the best content you put out, you're like super hyped for it. And then it gets, yeah, like no likes or like no views. And you're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck, man?
Yeah. Shoot. I'm not mad at them, at the people that do the RDLs with the camera angle right up close, but I think we're making waves out here with this kind of information style that's it's still, you know,
Yeah.
visually aesthetic, but it's providing that good information as well.
Yeah. Definitely
So,
moving in the right direction.
yeah, yeah. So kind of on that note, and as we close up, Bryce, what are some of your go-to learning sources or, you know, people, books? What does that look like for you?
So nowadays I listen to like a lot of audiobooks and a lot of podcasts just because like I don't necessarily have the time to like sit down and read a book
Yeah.
or read articles and stuff like that. So like if I am listening to stuff, it's gonna be more podcast related. And I do enjoy kind of just like dabbling in just a bunch of different like fitness type podcasts. One really good one that I've liked a lot lately is it's called like the Revive Stronger podcast, I think. And but this dude, he's a British guy, but he's had lots of like very, I don't say important, influential, like evidence-based people on the podcast, like from like the 3DMJ guys, the RP people, you know, like he's had like everyone on that podcast at some point. And he's had like Jordan Peters on there, which is, you know, another British guy. But it's been like, I enjoy that podcast because he has these people on. He talks about like their different styles, what they believe in, you know, their approach to different things. And it's nice. So that's kind of what I've been listening to lately. But, you know, obviously I think that most people should build their base around just learning basic training principles, periodization, stuff like that. Honestly, I think that the best way to learn basic stuff is to just like get like CSCS certified. You know, that's not going to teach you how to train a bodybuilder, but it will at least give you like the basic knowledge behind anatomy, physiology, training principles, understanding biomechanics, physics of lifting, stuff like that. And like, for me, it's not necessarily about understanding like progression models or periodization, because for like in hypertrophy, that stuff, you're not peaking for a performance, you're peaking for aesthetics. So the biggest things for me to know are practical things, exercise modification, stuff like that, that like I've learned in person over just years of doing this, but also just like biomechanics are such a big one. It can't be emphasized enough. Like, and another good source is N1 is a really good source for things like biomechanics. They go very in depth on all things like that. But whenever you understand just like a pretty like basic level of things like joint angles, torque, lever arms, things like that, you can figure out how to like train people with the appropriate exercise selection and sequencing, and where, you know, this exercise might be more applicable to this rep range. This one might be more applicable to, you know, higher intensities. And I think that a lot of keeping up to date on like the current research and like the current literature and just anecdotal evidence even is, I think for me, the best source of that stuff is generally through just like reputable podcasts and audiobooks and stuff like that. Just because, like I said, I don't really have the time to sit down and read much more anymore. Yeah. But I really like Mass as well. Mass is like a monthly thing that gets put out, and it's just kind of like a conglomeration of articles and meta-analysis and studies and things like that. And that's really, really good information. So I'd highly recommend people do that. RP puts out a lot of really good information on their YouTube channel, especially lately. Like I know Mike has taken that over pretty drastically, and they put out a ton of good information. 3DMJ puts out a ton of good information. To be honest, whenever it comes to training stuff, I like following more of like the natty people, because I feel like that stuff is a little bit more evidence-based versus whenever you're following like pro bodybuilders, like IFBB bodybuilders, stuff like that. It's a little bit more like, oh, we've been doing this for decades, so that's why we should do this and continue to do it, versus no, like we should do this because of X, Y, and Z, like actual physiological mechanism or anatomical thing where it makes much more logical sense versus just like, oh, it's worked for a long time, we should continue to do it. You know, it's like maybe there's better ways though.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we'll have a big enough pool of people on PEDs to be able to do studies and get some more results. I'll be looking forward to that in the future.
Hey man, like I'm fully all for, like, we just legalize PEDs, let everybody do all the steroids they want to. I don't give a fuck, man. We need to have a steroid Olympics and just see what people are capable of doing. I want to see some wild shit.
Oh yeah. Hey, with the way that things are going, there's definitely going to be a market for it in the next probably 20 years. So
I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Legalize all drugs except for the ones that ruin your life.
Right. Well, Bryce, man, I feel like you dropped some major knowledge in this episode. I'm going to try to do my best to listen over and put all of the references that you talked about as far as learning sources and timestamps in the description. So if you guys want to go back and listen, I'm definitely going to go back. So I would recommend that to everyone who's checking this episode out. Bryce, where can people find you if they want to look into coaching services or just consume more of what you're putting out?
Yeah. So like I said, I just kind of have been rebranding my business lately. My business name is Progressive Performance. That's my company name. So we've been putting out a lot of stuff through there. Just starting to be active on that Instagram. So
Okay.
that Instagram is going to start putting out a lot more content. My Instagram is Bryce Calvin 23. I put out a decent amount of content. If you want to inquire about working with me, you can always just like shoot me a message. You can fill out, like I have a link in my bio as an application to work with me. It's the same thing. It's going to be in like the business ID. So it's just much easier to take everything through Instagram these days than it is to try and go through a website. So that's typically how I funnel all of my business, is just through Instagram. It just makes things much more seamless, ironically.
Yeah. Well, Bryce, once again, thank you so much for taking time to come on and talk. I know you're a man in high demand right now, but we really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you in that next episode.